I think I've got a good one for you today. Where to start? Well, I'll tell you one thing. Several years ago, as I was putting together all my research and painstakingly writing the manuscript for this book that I published back in 2021, I was quite optimistic about things. But as time progressed, I mean, the last 4 years, a lot has happened. And I'm more realistic today about things. Still optimistic. But one thing the Book of Mormon has taught me, and you should know this too: the Jaredite nation fell, and the Nephite nation fell. And if history proves consistent, our American nation will fall. Now, why did I title this video Waste Places? If you do a search in the scriptures, there are about a good dozen scriptures, a good dozen passages that mention the term waste places with reference to the condition of the land when Zion becomes redeemed. Okay? There are scriptures that say that people will come forth with everlasting joy, singing songs of praises, building up the waste places of Zion or for Zion. And that the waste places, like a wilderness, will become like Eden. These are all things that are going to happen either during or after the New Jerusalem is built in preparation for the redemption of Zion. But this also implies that there will be waste places and wildernesses. So there's going to be destruction. And it wouldn't surprise me at all. And I know there are others out there who, like me, believe that America will fall. It'll collapse. And I've read articles where banks everywhere are already collapsing and bigger ones are consolidating. So let's back up a little bit. A lot. Now, this will be not so much scriptural citations, but more so narrative. So, after many bloody campaigns against the Lamanite armies, one of which resulted in Amalickiah's death, and after Amalickiah's brother Amoron succeeded him as king of the Lamanites, support from the Nephites to Captain Moroni and his armies waned. After an exchange of epistles with Chief Judge Pehoran, Captain Moroni learned that an insurgence of numerous kingmen overthrew Pehoran and drove him and many other Nephites from Zarahemla, and installed their own king by the name of Pachus. Pachus then sent an epistle to King Amoron, informing him of his joining with him in an alliance in which he, Pachus, would maintain the city of Zarahemla in support of Amoron's efforts to overthrow the remainder of the Nephite cities. Captain Moroni, it just keeps getting better. I mean, well, it keeps getting worse. Anyway, Captain Moroni then withdrew from the war with a number of his men and returned to retake Zarahemla. A battle ensued in which the kingmen were defeated and Pachus was killed. Pehoran was restored to his seat as chief judge, and the remaining kingmen were imprisoned and executed according to the law. Captain Moroni then returned to battle against the Lamanites, retook Nephite cities, and defeated Amoron's armies, slaying Amoron in the process. The Nephites succeeded in driving the remainder of the Lamanites from Nephite lands and began the process of refortifying their cities. Peace was finally established. Captain Moroni returned to his house, yielded up his armies to his son Moronihah, and resigned his commission as their chief captain so that he might spend the rest of his days in peace. There are so many remarkable events in this great decade-long war that could not be mentioned here as they are outside the scope of this subject matter. But you can read Alma chapters 45 through 62 for the detailed account of the dissensions, wars, and miracles that were recorded in the Book of Mormon. It's also imperative to understand that by studying the wars recorded in the Book of Mormon, we can learn to understand the subtle methods used by men who seek to gain power in local, state, and national governments today. Or as we read in Alma 47 verse 30, and thus Amalickiah by his fraud gained the hearts of the people. We can also learn how the Lord defends and protects his people, though they may be a tiny minority outnumbered by vast armies of enemies. We see an example of this in Alma chapter 2, verses 26 through 28, where we read, and it came to pass that the people of Nephi took their tents and departed out of the valley of Gideon towards their city, which was the city of Zarahemla. And behold, as they were crossing the riverside, and the Lamanites and the Amlicites, being as numerous, almost as it were, as the sands of the sea, came upon them to destroy them. Nevertheless, the Nephites, being strengthened by the hand of the Lord, having prayed mightily to him that he would deliver them out of the hands of their enemies, therefore the Lord did hear their cries, and did strengthen them, and the Lamanites and the Amlicites did fall before them. But most importantly, by careful study of the Book of Mormon, we can identify the cunning devices employed by conspiring men who seek to overthrow our liberty and to avoid the same trappings and pitfalls that the Nephites fell into because of their pride, self-righteousness, and lack of diligence in maintaining their rights to be free and happy. And I see this plainly here in the state of Utah. It's like history repeating itself. You have the Gadiantans and you have the Nephites who support the Gadiantans, and they're all getting rich at the expense of the lower class of Nephites who wore plain clothes, worked their lands, just wanted to be left in peace, to worship the Lord, take care of their families. It's all happening right now in Utah. We must take their stories in the Book of Mormon as a warning to try and prevent the same things from happening to us in America today. We might even be able to avoid our own destruction as a nation. So like I said, when I wrote this, when I was putting this together back in 2020, I was still very optimistic, and I still am, because Zion is in our future. Those of us who are diligently seeking to bring about the redemption of Zion. The Lord talks about those who seek to bring to pass the redemption of Zion. They will have the gift of the Holy Ghost. And how beautiful shall their feet be upon the mountains. That's in, I believe, in Isaiah. So while I am not optimistic about the United States, I am very optimistic about Zion, and I hope you are too.